G'day and welcome to another video with Better Pics. Hope this finds you all well. Today's video we're going to have a quick look at how to create a vignette within Adobe Camera Raw. Now the main purpose of a vignette is to really hold the attention of the viewer of your images to a certain point within that image. And in a portrait, for example, it could be a very clear subject like a person, or for example with this image that we're looking at the moment, it's the tree in the center of the image. So the purpose really is to selectively lighten or darken parts of the image to really contain that focus on where you want the viewer's focus to be and help retain that focus on the image so that the view or the attention isn't dropping off, outside of the image. So we've got a few images today that we're going to look at as samples. We've got this tree, we've got these flowers with a nice bee in the middle there, and we've got this cityscape which was photographed in Brisbane on the east coast of Australia. All right, so let's start with the tree. We're going to look at a few different techniques and justifications for different techniques and why they're a good way to go. So the first one that we're going to look at within Adobe Camera Raw is on the panel. On the right-hand side, I'm just going to minimize those extra little tabs there just to keep our attention. On the Effects tab or panel, and you can see that there's Vignette there, and if we slide that slider all the way to the left, you can see the outside is getting darker, and if we slide it to the right, you can see it is getting brighter or pretty much turned to white, as you can see. So we'll go back to 0, and what we're going to do for this one is just slide it to the left ever so slightly so you can see that the outside of that image is becoming darker, and instantly you can see that the attention on the tree is much stronger because the darkening of the outer parts of the image are almost framing that tree in a way that controls the viewer's focus on the tree and nothing else. So if you can feel that your attention is stronger on that tree, even though the tree is obviously a dominant subject matter or a dominant part of the image, then it's doing what it's meant to do. We've got a few other options there as well. You can see that we've got some options for style. We've got highlight priority, which it defaults to, color priority, and paint overlay. So you can see that it does have a different effect without changing anything on that slider. It does have a different effect on the image. Now, my suggestion is to actually experiment with all three, because what I've found is that there isn't a silver bullet with these three options. What I find is based on the tonal value and the subject matter of the image depends on whether highlight, color priority, or paint overlay works best. So for me, I'm actually going to go with paint overlay because I feel like it's just a little bit more subtle in terms of how that image is being affected. So that's what works best in my opinion for this image, but you may find, depending on the type of image, different things work better or worse. So it's just worth experimenting with any edit, particularly this one, just to see what works best for you. All right, so we're going to keep going down the list here. So you can see we've got a midpoint, and if we slide that one all to the left, you can see that it's actually bringing in the point where it is starting to affect the image a little bit closer to the center of the image. Now, depending on the size of the subject and the amount of real estate that it takes up in the image would determine how much midpoint you would use, and also obviously the effects that you're trying to achieve. The roundness affects the roundness, I guess that's an obvious statement, but the roundness effects is, if I go a little bit to the left, it's reducing the roundness, so it's taking on more of a rectangle shape. Now it's still fading from no effect to full effect, but if we go all the way to the right, you can see that it's quite round in the middle there. So I tend to drop that one down into the negative. About -20 I find works for the effect that I'm looking for. And the feather, the last option there, basically determines from no effect at all to full effect on the edge how much that's going to be feathered. So the best way to demonstrate this is if we take it all the way to the left where there's 0 feather, you can see it's a very defined line, and that for the effect I'm looking for isn't going to work. So for feather, I tend to put it up a little bit higher because I really like that soft, gentle transition from no effect to full effect. So as you can see there. So some great options there within the Vignette tab. We're going to have a look at this next image, and as I mentioned, you can see that it's a bee on some flowers, and we're going to use the same tool. So we're just going to drop that, and again, I'm going to have a look at a few different options. You can see this is a very colorful image. I like the paint overlay. I just find that it's a nice soft effect, and it just feels a little bit natural. We're going to drop it down, and we're going to decrease our midpoint. We're going to increase our roundness, and we're going to increase our feather. Now, once I've adjusted the midpoint roundness and feather, I actually come back and look at the vignette again just to see if I am going to gain any benefit from pushing it a little bit further, which I don't want to push it too hard, because I just find that if you push it too hard, it gives a very unnatural result. And really what I'm going for is for the image to look as natural as possible. Now, the last image that we're going to look at, we're actually going to look at a totally different technique. And what I'm going to use is the adjustment brush. And it's just up here on the top right-hand corner under your tools. If you have a look at your adjustment brush there. And I'm actually just going to use a brush. So this is a little bit of an old school method that I use, and it literally is painting in exposure onto the image. And this probably better replicates the technique that I used to use in darkrooms called dodging and burning. So burning would make the image darker. We're giving it more light exposure under the enlarger. And dodging means we're avoiding exposure on the paper, which would make the results brighter. All right, here we go. Let's just increase that size a little bit, and I'm just going to drop the exposure just a little bit, and I'm going to start painting in. And you can see that that is immediately having a darker effect. Now, the reason that I'm taking this approach for this image is, for me, the subject is the bridge across the full width of the image. And what I don't want to do is darken the edges of the bridge, because the bridge makes up the full width of the image. So what I'm looking at doing is just darkening the edges just that little bit. That's a little bit heavy for me, so I'm just going to reduce that a little bit. There we go. And that, to me, just darkening that sky and darkening that lower part of the image really helps to bring the focus in on the bridge. So that's a little bit of a different technique, but you're still achieving the same outcome. Remember, the point is to contain the viewer's attention within the image towards your subject so that they're not losing or falling off the edge of the frame and losing attention to where the subject is. So it just helps to contain people's view and focus a little bit more efficiently. So for me, that is a better way to go for this particular image. Now, we could afford to darken the water just that little bit more, so I'm going to create a new mask, and we're going to select brush, and we're again going to drop our exposure just a little bit, and we're going to paint that in again. And you can see that that just looks that little bit more natural. You would expect in a scenario like this where you have a sky and water, in this case it's a river, the water to be a little bit darker than the sky, because the sky is obviously naturally illuminated by the setting sun, as we can see. So that works really well. I'm just going to drop that exposure a tiny bit more. There we go. That looks good. Yep, happy with that. Again, my approach for editing is to have the images look as natural as possible. I don't want the edits to look unnatural or overdone or overcooked, for want of a better word. But of course, you know, your creative insights may want a different result. So it's important to develop your own taste and your own approach. Hopefully these tools will help you to do that. Thanks so much for stopping by. As always, any questions are welcome in the comments below, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.